Hello, everyone. I'm Tracy, and I'm here with Shane. And today we're going to be going over the anomalies that we have caught in the Palisades fire, and some of these are from Altadena. So, just a little update: the two fires that we're going to be going into are still active, and it is expected. So today is Monday the 13th. The winds are expected to continue through Wednesday. So that would make it an 8-day fire. To me, that is a long time. And they are saying that these are driven by Santa Ana winds. I'll just remind everyone Santa Ana winds typically come in the fall, October and November. It's usually associated with kind of like a warm wind. And yeah, so that in itself is unusual. And I'll let Shane point out these things. And a lot of these things we've seen with Maui, Paradise, and now in LA.
All right. Thanks, Tracy. So the first thing I want to show is a satellite image that was given to us, well, that was shown by Real Fishing Life. Real Fishing Life is a warrior and a freedom fighter, and we appreciate his work. So go give him a sub. Anyway, I just have a still from this video, but you can go over there and check out the actual video itself where you can see these moving. They are moving, so these lines are parallel lines that are actually perpendicular to the direction of the wind travel. You can actually tell by the direction of the smoke that they are perpendicular to the wind travel, but you can actually see that in motion in his video. And I also wanted to show another video from Dane Wigington of geoengineeringwatch.org. He also found these patterns in the wind, and I'm going to show them here. So you can see that they are what meteorologists term as gravity waves. But these gravity waves actually crisscross, like they're coming from two different sources. So you can see that there's, like an interference pattern being generated by the intersection of these two different sources of gravity waves. Now, meteorologists will say that that's actually caused by wind blowing over like the hills and stuff, but you would have to have wind blowing from two different directions intersecting at the same place at the same time, which is very uncommon, if not relatively impossible outside of like wind shear situations. So what this looks like is separate transmitters that are creating these interference patterns, and these interference patterns can create what's called electric wind or ionic wind, and this can actually drive the wind. So the fact that there was 80 plus mile an hour winds that day is probably due to the intersecting interference patterns. And I'll just leave it at that. All right. So now another thing that I want to go into is some of the more satellite images. So now this is an image of the Palisades from the satellite, and it looks like every single block, every single home is actually burning at the same time, as if it all pretty much erupted at once instead of traveling from one side of town to the other. I wouldn't have expected all of this to still be glowing as if it was all embers, but yeah, it just looked really strange. And then we also have some aerial images that show these neighborhoods. This one still has a lot of smoke rising, but one thing I wanted to point out is there's almost no homes that can be seen left intact in this image, but there's plenty of trees that still look like they have their foliage on there. And then there's another image that this is probably one of the most widely circulated images from the Palisades. And again, it looks very reminiscent of, Sonoma, California and Paradise, California, and even sections of Maui that also look like this, where the homes were completely leveled into a white dust, and some of the trees actually still have their leaves. Now, of the trees that did burn, we have what looks like a very, well, actually, before I get into the trees, I want to finish up with the neighborhoods. So I'm going to go into some news clips of these neighborhoods, and I want to show not only what the visuals, but I want you to listen to what they're saying as well.
This is like the first chance that we're actually kind of getting a look at that real devastation when they keep saying over 1,000 homes burned in the Palisades. This is one of those areas, this neighborhood, I would venture to say probably 500, maybe more homes out there. As I just get wider and wider, you can see some of the homes still standing, but so many of them just flattened out here. We can bring the map back up here in just a moment, but this is off of Sunset near Alma Real Drive. That's going to be the general area, and that's also part of the downtown area there as well. But take a look at that. This is, when you talk about a brush fire and you say, oh, there's some homes that have been destroyed, I never picture anything like this. This is just blocks after blocks after blocks of that neighborhood out here, and you can just see it just goes and goes and goes. And then sometimes there is, oddly enough, there's like a structure standing or maybe a garage standing. But for the most part, I would say every home in this neighborhood flattened due to the Palisades fire.
Yeah, that's quite extensive and complete destruction, I might add. All right, so I've got two more clips. They're about 30 seconds each, and these show the beachfront homes, but I also want you to pay attention to what they're saying.
Every now and then there'll be a home or two that are standing. This is also one of those things where how does that happen? I really don't know. You've got a home right there across the street on Pacific Coast Highway between two other homes. Leveled, gone, but the other homes seem to be fine. Go across the street, two of them or three of them are good, and then you have a row of just destruction after destruction, and some of Skyfox in the shot, and it just goes and goes and goes.
He keeps saying that. It just goes and goes and goes. All right, so now we have another clip that also relates to the seaside homes. And again, pay attention to what he says about the rebuild.
Is unreal.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, and you were talking about that, and there you go. You go across the street, and you just, right there. Those are the ones that you're talking about. Those are the seaside homes that are off of Malibu, and they're just, all of them just are gone. Just one after another, leveled. And of course, I'm also kind of wondering, I know this kind of goes down to another different rabbit hole, but I've heard in the past that they weren't going to allow construction there anymore, and now that these homes are gone, are they never coming back? It's just more questions than answers right now.
Yeah.
And I wanted to comment on the rebuild of the coast. In California, we have something called the California Coastal Commission. I think they've been active for a few decades now, but they are a group of people, commissioners, that permit building and rules and make regulations on the coast. And yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, Newsom signed a bill that will bypass the California Coastal Commission so that the rebuild can happen faster. But what happens is they don't have to follow the rules and regulations that they once were held to. And that is very reminiscent of Lahaina, because previous to the fire, Governor Green signed an addendum or something that would bypass
Proclamation.
A proclamation that will allow the rebuild to bypass a lot of the rules and things. So I just wanted to point that out.
Right. And then, so in order to finish up the section I have here on the neighborhoods, I was going to go into Tahitian Terrace, but it turns out that Tracy actually personally knows that area. So I'm going to toss it to her for this one.
Oh, the Tahitian Terrace. Yeah, I don't know it too well. Sorry. I've driven by it because I believe it's right off of PCH, but it's one of the few remaining mobile home communities. And we see this very common, these type of places where it's not as of a high income area. These areas tend to get hit really hard. And if you notice, you can't really even tell that it was a mobile home park because everything is so flattened aside from the trees and some of these beams, and not a single toilet, bathtub, sink.
I did find one bathtub. I don't think I show it here, but there was one bathtub. It's probably metal. I'm guessing it's metal or fiberglass or something.
Okay, well, we often don't see any porcelain that survives from these type of fires. Also, that metal that had been melted from the car. And I guess that's one vehicle there. But a lot of this is just completely unrecognizable. I've never been in this. Well, before, when the Franklin fire happened, I thought it was interesting that these areas survived because they're usually the areas that get hit first. But as we can see here, this area is completely demolished, and I don't see this area being replaced with another mobile park. This area is extremely valuable. It overlooks the ocean. It's prime real estate, and that's another commonality we're seeing with Lahaina on the water. Extremely valuable real estate and a perfect opportunity to give an excuse to rebuild in another way. All right. Was there anything else on that you wanted me to?
That's all of the neighborhood stuff I was going to go into, but then I want to also cover the trees. So besides the structures, there were trees that burned, but these trees actually burned as if they were electrified or some sort of plasma. It looks like either plasma or electricity has lit these up like a fiber optic cable, and they're glowing from the inside. It's a really strange burn pattern, and I just wanted to point that out. However, there was a lot of trees that survived, like this. I believe it's a eucalyptus. I can't be sure. I would need the forensic arborist Robert to confirm that for me. But what stuck out to me is the fact that this tree overhangs a completely leveled home, and there is even some burn damage below the tree, but not really on the tree itself. The base of the trunk looks like it might be slightly scorched, but it's hard to tell from this distance. All right. So then let's see here. After the trees, I wanted to go into the automobiles. So we're going to talk about the cars now. You can see this car is completely hollowed out. It's missing its all four doors and its back hatch and trunk. And it looks like some of the metal has liquefied and ran away from the car. But I also have some video that I wanted to show of these cars. And the first one I'm going to show, I'll have Tracy actually narrate this one.
All right, so I believe this is in the Palisades where maybe there was that roadblock, but something we noticed, gas caps are often missing. The tires are usually, melted, and the door handles are missing. Glass is either evaporated or completely melted, which is not a typical burn pattern for a normal fire. And I know Robert said this is something he sees almost every single time is the glass is either missing or melted, and you can see the melted metal that has pooled and kind of like a river. Yeah, see the gas caps are gone, and something that's a little different this time around, and I'm not completely sure, is that some of the tire rims are still there. They're normally completely gone and melted. But I think, I mean, if I had to guess what that is that the direction of where the heat source was coming might have been a little different for some of these cars. And they're, every car is a little different. This one is extreme. That last one was extremely demolished, but I think it depends on the angle of the car, where it was situated, and the source of the heat maybe was affecting these vehicles differently. And so, yeah, see, one side is burnt and the other side isn't. You would think if these were from embers, as they're claiming, they would have kind of been more sporadic, like some of the other cars on the other side would have been affected. But it does seem like one side got hit and the other side didn't. And these are just classic examples of these unusual fires. Also, the metal is oxidized immediately, and the engine blocks are melted because that's where the densest material is.
I would add that density is probably a tertiary component to this. I would say conductivity is one of the things that matters a lot also, as well as the polarity, like in water molecules. But what sticks out to me in this video is that you can see on both sides of the highway, the trees and the grass look relatively intact. However, it's mostly only the cars that burned here, and only the driver's side rims seem to have melted, whereas the passenger side rims seem to have been more intact. And I do think that perhaps the heat or whatever it is that melted these cars actually probably came from the driver's side, and the And I did also want to mention Santa Monica Close Up. He was the one who posted these, and I want to thank him for getting in there with his press pass and doing all the work that he did. But in that last video, it looked like the driver's side got it worse and the passenger side was mostly spared. And so maybe the passenger side was in the shadow of some sort of line of sight energy of some sort. All right. So now that we've gone through the car rims and the pack of cars that was there, I do want to show just a couple more pictures here. So there was the car that was completely hollowed out. We just saw that one. Here is another car, which is right next to the bushes. The bushes don't look to be burned. They still have their foliage. It might be slightly browned, but the foliage has not actually caught on fire yet. And it looks like the only thing that caught fire in this image is the car itself. All right, so now I think that's going to bring us to the structures. So let's go over some of these structures now. I have this one, and I think Tracy actually recognized this building.
I think this is 881 Alma Real, and it's an area when I was a professional, I was an outside sales rep. I used to call on this building pretty regularly, and I had a lot of really wonderful customers in this building, and it's really a shame to see how destroyed it is. And for an area such as the Palisades, they had sprinkler systems. A lot of these structures were built to withstand fire, but it just seems like this building is completely, like, it needs to be completely knocked over. And the excuse that these were like wooden structures that were old, that's just not the case right here. And
Yeah, so
this
these
really
are
struck
steel
me.
beams. Yeah, and what really stuck out to me is these steel beams that comprise like the roof structure here, is that these beams are drooped and warped in the middle. These are like at least 1 inch thick I-beams, possibly 2. But in order to warp those like that, you're talking almost 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit would be required to do that kind of damage. All right, and then, excuse me. Speaking of metal, so I'm going to keep going through some of these metal objects here. We have a shipping container, which the sides have pretty much burned through down to like the rib material. So the inside of a shipping container has these like, I think it's probably aluminum sheets that are probably supported by steel alloy ribs. And it looks like most of the aluminum here has burned or melted away, leaving only the ribs behind. We also have another shipping container. This one, the reason I'm showing this is because it is so oxidized, and it looks like it underwent some sort of rapid oxidation process. Um, Normally, we see in a normal fire, where maybe the paint burns off and then it's exposed to the elements for a number of weeks or months afterwards, and then it will rust. However, we've seen after these strange fires, metal objects will be instantly rusted, like they've been sitting there for years in the weather. All right, let's see here if I have any video to go with this. Yes, I do have a video of the chase bank, which I want to show. So now look at these beams at the top. Some of these beams are not only warped and melted, but there's a bit of a twist to some of these. Now, I've seen twisted metal like this before in Maui, especially in some of Spice's videos where we saw like that garage door that was completely twisted into like a rope or like a licorice stick. You can see that kind of effect happening near the top of the chase bank as well. All right, let's see here if I have any more structure related videos. I will, but I can come to that in another section. So as far as like structures go, some of these structures do contain smart meters, and I was going to toss it over to Tracy for this one.
Okay, so this is another commonality with Maui, and it seems like the heat or the fire came from within the wiring as opposed to an ember hitting that, because if you look at the surrounding area, like the window and that plastic box on top, there's probably like a sprinkler system possibly. It looks fine, but the meters in a lot of these fires seem to get completely melted. And the source was the meter as opposed to something else causing the meter to melt. And was there anything else on that one you wanted to add?
Yeah, I do want to add that most likely so a lot of people think that the meter can be controlled, like say from the power company to put out this kind of fire and start the fires. I find it less likely that the power company is actually sending surges to these meters to start these houses on fire, but I do find it convenient that these smart meters are actually two-way transmitters. So they actually receive and they send signals to the power company through what's like a 5G antenna. It's like a 5G frequency. It's in the microwave range, and it sends a pulse like every so often to update the power company on your usage. That pulse, it is kind of high energy. Like you probably wouldn't want to be living next to a smart meter for health reasons. But I do think if they were trying to overload the smart meter, it would most likely overload the wiring leading to the smart meter, which it looks like you know that could be the case. But I think what's most likely going on is that these are two-way antennas that receive 5G or microwave frequencies, and they convert them into electricity. And what probably happened here is it got caught in some sort of energy, and it converted that energy into heat and in electricity. And so the electricity that was induced through the wires would cause resistant heating and cause it to heat up. And it just looks like perhaps these meters are receiving energy, and then more likely than they are transmitting the energy. So if they were going to be caught in a beam, you would have a very similar effect. And I think the energies that are being given off by these meters are probably much higher than the electrical grid would usually support. Okay, so let's see here. We still have some more fiery behavior to go through, and we have a couple of Firenados to show. And so I'm going to show this one. This is the first one that I have, and I believe that I'm not really sure if this was in the Palisades or in Altadena. I can't be certain. However, you do see how skinny, how narrow it is, how quickly it's spinning, and it looks like it keeps so like the part where the flame keeps shooting up through the center of the updraft, it's very narrow and it keeps shooting up in the same spot.
And
And
we have a video that Shane did some time ago that goes into the science and explains how these things happen. Yeah, I don't want to. I'm trying to
yeah,
not let the video get too long, but we'll
I
put that
won't
in
go
the
into too much
description.
detail here. Yeah, I won't go into too much detail here. We'll put the video in the description below. And I'm going to show another Firenado here. Also, do not know the location of this one. This is more of a smoke nado that sometimes turns into a bit of a fire devil at the bottom, where it's actually making contact with the ground. This is not as dramatic of a video, but you can see the smoke tail going up there. And I just, Firenados are a phenomenon that used to be relatively rare. Yes, they can happen naturally, but I think the dramatic uptick that we've seen in Firenado behavior is not necessarily natural, and it's certainly not related to climate change, in my opinion. All right. So now I have another clip that shows the speed of the fire. So this is a fire front that's moving, allegedly wind driven. And yes, the wind is blowing in that direction. But look how quickly the fire is moving from one area to the next. Usually it takes a second or two to light something on fire, right? And so you wouldn't expect, the fire to move so quickly from one area to the next.
Almost
All
like there
right.
was an accelerant or something on the ground,
Right.
potentially.
Yeah. All right, let's see what other images I have. So after the smart meter, we do have, well, actually, I'm going to show one more short clip that shows some trees. This is another, I believe, eucalyptus tree, which is in the middle of a burned out area. The house below it is completely leveled and it's gone. And then we also have another clip that shows some foliage that's intact here, right next to some steel beams that are warped. And then there's more foliage. And in this video, he turns into the parking lot and he shows, the rest of the area surrounding this structure. And you can see most of the trees look like they're intact. This area was probably not actually impacted by the fire on this side. But then as you turn towards the structure, you can see a little bit of yellowing or browning to the foliage. Yet the structure is still completely surrounded by foliage, yet the steel was warped.
Okay,
All
let's
right.
go on to the objects like the umbrellas and stuff.
Yes. So now we have some objects. I want to show these are umbrellas. Now this looks very reminiscent to something we've seen before. These are green umbrellas, but these look a lot like the blue umbrellas that we saw at Tommy Bahamas in Maui, in Lahaina on Maui. And then here's another view of these umbrellas. And you can see that they are sort of a dark green color. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this, but I have talked about it in the past, how blue, green, and red in that order are usually the colors that typically survive these type of fires. I do have a short clip actually that I will show of these umbrellas. It's right here.
And then Maui, they were blue, and this is when they're green.
Right. I did want to also point out that the color green does contain blue. Typically, green pigments are made by combining blue and yellow. And that's usually how they get green. So green often does contain blue, and that's probably why it's the second most likely color to survive. All right, so let's see here. I think that covers, well, I do have, I think, one more video I want to show with the trees. So before we get fully into the colors, I just want to show like the sandwiching of the trees. So like you have a house that's leveled, but it's sandwiched in between bushes. And then on the other side of this bush, you have another house that's leveled and a tree right in front of it that's fine. Yes, the tree near the driveway was a little bit scorched. However, look at this structure sandwiched right between the trees and the bushes. And then we have another structure that was leveled right in between bushes and trees. And then on the other side of those bushes, another structure leveled. And I won't play out the full video. It's just the same pattern over and over again, basically, is what we see here. All right. So now when it comes to color coded stuff, I did also find a ping pong table that was right next to this, what looks to be like a garage that's burning, and everything else around it has already burned. And so it looks like the sole survivor of this scene is the ping pong table. And then there is another photo that I have of this blue spray bottle, which was found in a burned, charred, ashy zone. It was right next to a couple of mailboxes, actually. And let's see here. We also have this blue car, which was sitting right between a couple of houses, once again, sandwiched between the homes.
And then something I want to point out real quick is you see how that fence is intact? Those fences are usually plastic. And that might also explain why a lot of those fences survived as well.
Yeah, we often see the plastic fences will usually not be burned, but sometimes melted. I can't be sure if that's what this is here, but I just wanted to show that there is a blue car sandwiched between these homes, and you can see the power lines in front of it that are kind of like blocking the driveway. So it doesn't look like this car was driven here afterwards. All right, so now I am going to talk a little bit about the trash cans. There was lots of trash cans that were still surviving. However, none of them were like extremely close to burned objects. However, this one is practically touching this truck. And this truck is completely, the glass is completely gone. The paint is completely gone. The metal is oxidized. And you can see a little ring around the truck that extends about 3 or 4 feet away. That looks like the extent of the radiative heat that was coming off of this truck. So it looks like even though this trash can is touching, the truck, it didn't actually melt or catch fire or anything, even if it's within the 3-foot radius there. So it's really strange that this trash can didn't catch fire. I would expect it to have actually caught fire. One thing that's really interesting, this is the most damaged of the blue trash cans that I could find. And I think the reason for that is that it's actually touching this fence. The fence was most likely getting very hot, if not electrified, and probably is what melted this trash can. We have another blue trash can here. This is another one that's actually slightly damaged. You can see some melting has taken place, although it is quite a distance from the structure itself. And most likely that melting occurred from the flames in the grass itself. All right, now we do have some videos to go through here. I'm going to try to make this fast because we're running over on time. but we do have some porta potties were completely intact.
You were
There's also
muted. Sorry. You were muted. I unmuted you, but
oh,
that was,
okay. I didn't realize that clip still had the sound on it. So yeah, you saw
yeah.
the porta potties at the end of that burned out structure there. One. Now we have this one. So this clip actually does show a wide area or wide swath of damage. Yet right in the middle of all of this damage, you can see there's some porta potties right there.
And I was kind of
All right.
thinking, because I know Robert went into how he's seen trucks go in and like pick up incriminating evidence, after a tragedy like this. And I was thinking, but the porta potties are almost always there. And yes, they are blue, so that's probably why they survive. But it's probably one of those things you don't want to pick up and load into a truck, if you know what I mean.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
think that's what's going on. And then just a analogy, if you put something in the microwave, just think about, what is not affected and what is.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Metals are highly interactive with microwaves, and microwaves will induce eddy currents through metals, which will cause resistive heating and arcs that can spark and ignite adjacent objects as well. Um, Plastic itself, however, is rather transparent to microwaves. It's virtually non interactive with microwaves. And so microwaves will pass right through plastic of any color, actually, as long as it's plastic. All right. And then I do want to show some of this video. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but you can see how there's a lot of damage here. And then right next to this car, probably not close enough, is a blue trash can that has survived. Now, maybe the trash can was sitting too far away from the car to actually burn, or maybe something else was going on there.
Look at that
All right, so
green
now,
grass and those green hedges that
yeah,
are.
yeah, the grass is very green. Here's that truck again. The trash can practically touching the truck. It should have at least melted, if not actually caught on fire. And then here we see a completely leveled home. There's a blue object in front of the home. I will give the benefit of the doubt and say that maybe that retaining wall had protected it. There's some more blue stuff. But what sticks out to me here is these beams. These are I-beams. They got tilted and twisted into like virtually H-beams. And they're also very oxidized, as if they underwent rapid oxidation. And then you see a blue object there, a couple blue objects. And then you come around the corner. There's some burnt stuff and
Yeah,
another
what are
blue object.
those, I guess, water machines where you can get filtered
Uh,
water.
Well, the big one was a water machine, and the small ones, I think, were those little advertisements that they put around the those upright parking stoppers. I don't know what to
Mhm.
call those things, but yeah, here's a bunch of trees that have their leaves, but the homes beneath them have been leveled. There is some scorching on the trees. Here's some more trash cans, and then here's a blue birdhouse or something that looks to be relatively intact right in front of the house that was completely destroyed. And then you got the leaves still on this tree,
Is
but
it a
the
green
house
car?
to the this is the blue car, and the houses to the left and the right of this blue car were
There's
both
also a
leveled.
green
And
car on the right.
oh, okay, okay. Oh yeah, there was also a green car on the right.
I didn't get a good view of
Now,
that.
yeah, now when it comes to certain things burning other things, I try to keep them close together. So if there's two objects within 3 or 4 feet of each other, and one burned and one didn't, then I find that suspicious. But if it's like 6 feet or more, then I'll give the benefit of the doubt on that one. All right, so we've probably seen enough of this video here. I'll go ahead and let this, there's only like 15 more seconds, but you can see that eucalyptus to the left, and you can
And
see a
also
head,
the
or a
water.
hedgerow.
Look at all that
Yes,
water on
yes.
the ground.
Yeah, there was a lot of water on the ground, and there were places where we could see the water leaking out of the ground. And it does look like the water mains had either broken or melted, releasing the water pressure. So there may have been water, it just wasn't under pressure.
I think the narrative of no water is a distraction. I think it was more likely the pipes that were damaged. And so, because I saw another video that SMCU did where you can see the water mains, the water actually still coming out. So there was water, it's just the pressure probably went down because multiple, pipes were
Yeah.
busted. And then that's another reason that the water is probably extremely toxic. If you think about the damage, if that pipe was metal and that's seeping into the tap water, even when they do fix things, they're not going to replace every single pipe. So, and I know they have said, do not drink the water, do not cook with it, no matter how much you boil it, because those toxins or those particulates cannot be boiled out. I know that I, at some point, went through there are certain filters, but you would have to really research and find out what filter filters what. And I think there is a way to do that, but you just want to be very careful because, you know, these toxins will build up in your system. And
I'd like to go on a quick little mini rant if I could, about the about the colors. So I'm just going to give a quick couple of examples. So when you go to the tattoo removal clinic to have a tattoo removed, let's say it's a color tattoo that contains all the colors. The hardest colors to remove are going to be blue, green, and red. And these are the same colors that we see showing up in these fires. Blue, green, and red are most often likely to survive the fires. And I just want to touch on blue again for a second. There is a color of blue called non-photo blue, which is the least interactive color with light. And comic book artists and animators actually do use those blue pencils to do their sketching, because the graphic arts cameras don't actually pick up the blue because it is the least interactive color with light.
Yeah, and then we'll link the videos where we show like visuals and we discuss this topic more, because we've been talking about this for some time. I don't know. This is one that I'm not sure if we showed. Oh yeah, we didn't want to show that because that is blue, but then a lot of non-blue stuff were still intact. So that's kind of an iffy one. Did we do blueberry patch? I just want to make sure we get everything.
Yeah, we did that one.
Okay, so this is not everything that we have regarding anomalies. These are the topics that we've been over. I didn't want this video to be, hour plus, and also I don't have that much time today, but we do have something that's going into the UAPs that have been recorded in this area. And that is really fascinating because there are some really, really good images of drones flying around these fires. And this is not a new thing. I believe we have evidence from Lahaina, and I've heard of not just fires, but other natural disasters. We see UAPs or drones, as we're calling it now, kind of associated with these tragedies. And I do want to also, I was listening to something and they pointed out how, this is a little off topic, but not really, how the mainstream really caught on to these UAP or drone sightings and the narrative that is being said by almost all of the new, big news networks. They're saying these drones are a threat to democracy. So it's almost like someone above gave this script, and it's been repeated so many times. I just wanted to say, if you hear someone saying that drones are a threat to democracy, just know that is a narrative that is being put into your mind, and we call that a psyop. Okay, and I'm going to close out with this PDS warning. And maybe Shane, you know a lot about this PDS. This is new to me, but you know of it as associated with tornadoes. Is that correct?
Yeah. So usually a particularly dangerous situation warning is associated with tornadoes most commonly. However, this is the first time I've ever seen a PDS warning accompanying a red flag warning. So that means this is no normal red flag warning. This is a particularly dangerous situation red flag warning. So this red flag warning of all should be taken more seriously than the others, because it's impacting a large population and there's a high risk for fire.
Right, and I see it's going. They're saying that the areas that are most likely to be affected are the Santa Clarita Valley, maybe even like Burbank, which normally is okay, but Thousand Oaks and Oxnard, they're no stranger to fires. But it seems like when the news networks say these types of things, they often come true. And, unfortunately, there's some sort of insight that these people have, and they are telling us, this is kind of what's going to happen and what to expect. And I know that's really sad because these areas are highly populated, and a lot of these people, I mean, it's a really tough decision to decide whether to move, to evacuate. Um, I'm just starting to see some of these centers where donations and supplies and services are being kind of allocated, and they're a madhouse. There are like hundreds of people coming to donate. And something else that maybe we'll touch on in a future video is, now that this has become, international news, you're going to see these organizations popping up asking for donations, and just be very wary. In our book, we go into some of these organizations, and we go into depth on how some of these groups came to be, and that a lot of these funds, if you're donating money, a very small portion will go to the actual victims. Some of this, and I know in Maui, has gone to the redevelopment process, which when you're donating is probably not what you're hoping to donate to. You're donating to the problem, and often, paying for people's salaries and paying for things that you're probably not aware of. So just be very careful with that. I don't have a organization that I can comfortably recommend, but do your research and find a reputable, I will say a reputable individual or family that needs it, instead of these organizations, because they have often big administrative costs.
I would say anything but the California Community Foundation. Anything
Oh,
else would
okay.
probably be okay at this point. Yeah.
Okay, or FEMA, or I'm not supposed to say that, but these very large, international or federal agencies, you should be already paying for their funding through taxes. So that's my opinion. And that's going to do it for today, but we do have a lot more information going into the political aspects of what's going on, the political and social. And a lot of people have reached out with information. So thank you all for reaching out. I'm going to try to put together what I can as fast as I can. And I think maybe the next one will be the UAP topic. So be looking out for that this week. And please subscribe if you haven't yet. And please share this video. I don't think YouTube is going to promote this very heavily. So it's really up to you all to let everyone know. And, this situation has really gotten so out of hand. I can't believe it's still going. I really, really can't. I thought it would be done by now. But they're saying at least till Wednesday, these winds are going to be a problem. And just be safe, for those of you who are in the LA area. I would say Watch Duty is a decent app to go into. It's only updated every 4 hours, but it's better than, some of the other networks that we see. So that's what I use, is Watch Duty. I think you use that as well too, Shane.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so with that, thank you guys all for being here, and we will see you all soon. Bye.